Hello, welcome back to the channel. It is, what is it, 23rd of January? And way back in December or early January, I said I was going to give you an update because we had that crazy Arctic freeze right before Christmas. And well, I didn't do an update. So we're doing an update today, and I'm just going to fill you in as to what's going on in the greenhouse, what's growing, what seems to be working, what hasn't seemed to be working. And big reason I'm doing it today is because everything is just a wee bit wet outside. We had about 2 inches of rain last night, or all day yesterday, I should say, and everything is just sodden. It's just wet. There's standing pools of water in various places around the property, and some of the areas where I want to do projects or work, they're just soaking wet. So it'll take a few days for things to dry out, and then I can get back to doing what I want to do out in the garden. But today, we're going to do a little update on the greenhouse, and again, what's going on and what's happening here in the greenhouse. And we're going to start off here, down here, by the entrance of the greenhouse, by the front, by the door here. And wow, it is a little warm in here. It's about 80 degrees inside the greenhouse, which is nice. I'm actually going to crank open one of the roof vents here just a little bit. Temperature outside is supposed to be about 50 today. I already have the front door propped open. And probably around 3 o'clock or so, I'll turn around and come back, and I'll probably start closing up the greenhouse so it starts to build up that warmth and that heat to go overnight. And the nighttime temperatures lately have been around the 50s, high 40s. So the inside of the greenhouse doesn't get anywhere near that cool. But speaking of getting that cool, we did have that Arctic blast. Now, here where I am in eastern North Carolina, we got to about 20 degrees, maybe 50, I think it's about 20 degrees at night. Daytime temperatures, of course, didn't get really above freezing for I think at least 24 hours or so. It was pretty harsh. It was pretty bad. And I was really nervous about what was going to survive and not survive. This is an uninsulated, unheated greenhouse. The only heating I have here in the greenhouse, if you're new to the channel, just stumbled across this, is the passive heating that I have below this bench, which is just a series of milk and water jugs that are spray painted black. So during the daytime when the sun is out, they absorb the heat, they get pretty warm, and then at nighttime they release the heat. I also have a 30-gallon black barrel, which I'm doing sort of like a compost experiment in, but this 30-gallon pail here has been getting pretty warm. So it does emit some sort of heat, which is great because, again, that just allows the greenhouse to stay that much warmer at night. So let me stop prattling about that. Right off the bat, right over here, I have dragon romaine lettuce, and it's the same romaine lettuce that I have growing over here, but this is, I just decided, let me put it in one of these small trays, let me start growing it. It's an experiment. I just wanted to see what would it do, how would it grow. Again, I've never really grown anything in the greenhouse. This is all new to me, so I'm just figuring this out. Still have some leftover lettuce seed, so I was like, let me throw this in and see what happens. How big will it get? Can it, grow and thrive in something so thin? I don't plan on transplanting this out. So far, so good. It's doing well, and I, give it water and it grows, which is great. The other lettuce over here, as you can see, this is pretty thick. And it's getting thicker, which is nice. The plants are getting bigger. I've already been picking leaves off of it, which I probably shouldn't be doing, but it tastes lovely and it's growing, which is great. Let me back to over here. I have these Mr. Lincoln Rose cuttings. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever taken cuttings from roses. I'm not sure. Do I give it longer? Do I wait? Because they don't seem to be doing anything. This one, I don't know if the camera will focus. I don't think it's going to focus, but all of them have like a little bud on them, but they don't seem to be doing anything. I keep them watered in the hopes that they might do something, but generally not. Now, these, on the other hand, this is Earth Angel. This is another rose that I took cuttings of, and you can see this one's got all sorts of leaves on it, which is great. All 4 of my cuttings that I did of this are doing fantastic. They're all putting on, this one's crazy. It's probably taller than it should be. But, and again, maybe you can see it. Hopefully the camera will focus. It's got all sorts of buds on it. I've got, 1, 2, 3. There's buds growing on this. This is fantastic. I'm hopeful that maybe this upcoming fall, maybe? I don't know. I'll plant it out in the rose garden. We'll see. We'll see how it grows. I'll probably be up-potting them early spring maybe, because they can't obviously stay in the cups, but again, so far so good. They're putting on plenty of growth, which is fantastic. In the back corner over here, I have a larkspur, which I thought died when I dug it up from the garden. But as you can see, it's got green on it. It's got growth on it. Again, like everything else, I keep it watered. In fact, everything in here I think needs a little bit of water. A couple of rosemaries. I need to get them in the ground someplace. I don't know where I'm going to put them. And then I have these carnation flowery things. You know, I started them from seed last year. Basically, I think this is their second or third up potting. And by the time they got to kind of this size, they really should have gone out into the flower garden, but they didn't. And I didn't want to put them out in the flower garden, again, with the winter freezes. And again, we had that Arctic blast, but obviously the plants inside the greenhouse didn't freeze or freeze enough or get a frost on them to damage them at all. They just kept thriving. One of the other things I just started recently, and let me pull this over here a bit, see if you can see it, is onions. So I've started onions in one of my wood trays here that I made out of pallet wood. So then, of course, we have this lettuce here, which is wonderful. Like I said, it's been doing great. I can't help myself. I'm gonna pull you. It's romaine lettuce. It's good. So before we get moving on to the rest, I just want to come up here real quick. I do have these couple of lupines. These are also something that when I decided to plant them out, it was just going to be too cold and I was worried about frost. So again, they've been overwintering here. I have some of these. This is a weed. Get out. I have some of these cuttings. Hopefully the camera's focusing on that. This is golden ticket. And, you know, it looks a little rough, but it seems to be hanging in there, which is great. I have 4 of those. I have a cutting of, this is a oak leaf hydrangea. And again, I've mentioned this before when I put a lot of this stuff in here, but everything seems to be hanging in so far for the most part. Here's a wax myrtle cutting that I took that it don't look so good, but I'm quite not ready to throw it out because I see a bunch of buds on it. So what I'm hopeful for is that come the springtime, maybe those buds will pop out. I don't know. I'm hopeful. Here's another one with another weed in it. Just pull the weed out. Throw it outside the greenhouse. But this one also has a bunch of buds on it. I have a couple of lavenders here, English lavenders. They smell nice. You know, I'll probably up pot these in the springtime into bigger pots, or I may put them in the ground. My only worry or concern is if I put them into the ground that, again, we do get these heavy rains and the ground stays sodden for quite a few days. English lavender doesn't like wet, soggy feet. So if I plant them into the ground, it's my worry or concern that it just might be too wet for them. If we have a wet summer, I don't know. We may have a dry summer like we did last year. I don't know. But also along the top edge here, I have another Mr. Lincoln. And again, I don't know. It looks weak, but there's an itty bitty bud. Let's see if the camera focus. So there's an itty bitty bud there. I don't know if it'll do anything, but I'm hopeful because if the Mr. Lincoln can do its thing, if it starts coming to life, I can have more Mr. Lincoln roses. That's a rose, in case I failed to mention that. So let me turn the camera around. We'll show you the back half of the greenhouse. Behind the lettuce, I have a container of radishes, and they're doing quite well. I'm hopeful I can harvest them maybe in the next few weeks. They haven't been growing, I don't think, as fast as they normally would. And I think part of that is simply because, you know, it's shorter days, less sun, and of course... Oh, wait, there's a radish. You know what? I'm going to leave it in the ground for a bit. There is a radish in there. So the radishes, despite the lack of sun, again, because of the cloudy days, it is growing. And next to it here, I have a pot of parsley. I didn't know that parsley is cold tolerant, so I thought I'd try again as an experiment. Throw it into the pot, see what happens, and it is growing. Let's pull it out here for the camera. Look at that, parsley. It's growing. It's got a long ways to go, but it's growing. Depending upon how it grows, some of it may wind up being planted out into the new herb beds that I build out in the springtime. So we'll have to see how that goes. A bunch of these right here are snapdragons, and again, by the time I thought about planting them out into the flower beds, it was danger of frost, and snapdragons will die back with a frost, but they may not come back in the springtime if they didn't have a good rooting. So I decided to keep them in pots, keep them in here in the greenhouse, And then hopefully in the springtime, once the ground is warm enough and the danger of frost is past, I'll drop them into the ground. I have a couple of pots of really mangled and horrific succulents, which I won't talk about today, really. They've been much abused and not taken care of. And I'm going to do another video in the upcoming weeks about replanting or repotting up my succulents to make them more clean and presentable and get rid of the dead ones and yada yada. One of the other projects that I'm working on this winter is I'm growing garlic here in the greenhouse. And the thought is, will it grow faster with the warmth in here than the garlic outside? And right now, just looking at it, the leaves are about the same. And then they are outside. Maybe a little taller, but for the most part, it's about the same. So the experiment is which will I be able to harvest first, the greenhouse garlic or the garlic out in the garden here. If you've ever grown anything in a greenhouse, please let me know in the comments below. A couple of various, I think these are annuals. This is Wandering Jew. I know it's not frost tolerant, so or freeze tolerant. So my wife had me bring this hanging basket inside. And of course, another thing with, I don't know what this is, but it's an annual of some sort, but it seems to be hanging in there. And of course, the peppers that I have in this back pot, which I don't expect really to do anything this winter other than not die, hopefully, because peppers like really, really warm weather. And again, the greenhouse, even though it's like 80 degrees in here today, at nighttime it drops to probably as low as 40. So, you know, it's not really conducive to the peppers themselves, from my understanding. I've never grown peppers before, so it's actually my first attempt. And I will be growing a lot more peppers outside once the spring weather comes and warms up. Let me just show you a couple other things here. Back here, I have my 2 lemon trees and my orange tree. And the orange tree appears to be putting on flowers, which is crazy. The lemon trees are doing quite well too. Now, last year I lost, or thought I lost, all of them. They're supposed to be frost or freeze tolerant. And last year, it might have been because we had a heavy rain and then everything froze. So it was an ice rain. Everything seemed to die back to the stems. It was horrific. I thought I'd lost everything. So that's why this year I was like, I am putting them in the greenhouse. And that's where they're going to stay throughout the winter. In the springtime, they're going to, these 2 lemon trees will get potted up into bigger pots. And the orange tree actually needs to be topped off. The soil is somewhat compressed, so I'll be pulling it out and refilling and giving it, you know, some extra stuff. And all that will be going out into the veg garden here. Sort of a decorative manner too, and I'll show you that when we get to putting them out. Everything seems to be doing quite well. You know what, actually, I think there's the lemon tree is trying to put on flowers too, which is interesting. If that's a flower, I think it is. But I just keep them watered. I don't water them a lot. The cooler temperatures, I think, slows the growth, kind of puts them into a semi-dormant state. I don't know much about fruit trees. Again, if you do, please leave a comment below. I'm learning. So the growth, I mean, I haven't seen no new growth other than some of these flowers. So this is what I'm talking about, and I think this looks like flowers here. So that's all pretty cool and exciting. Over here off to the side, I have my elephant ears. They're all dormant. I have a bunch of loofahs I have to still strip and clean. I have loofahs here I need to wash. You know, on the list of priorities, they're pretty low, but I really should get to them sooner than later. And that's about all I have in the greenhouse. I'm not growing as much as maybe I imagined in my head. And I think some of that is just nervousness, fear. I wasn't sure how things were going to go. I didn't want to fully dive into doing, you know, lots of trays or beds of lettuce or parsley or anything else. First year off the bat, I just wanted to try a few things, see how it would work. How does the greenhouse work during the winter? Again, I've never had a greenhouse that I could actually grow things in like this or been in a climate. When I was in New York, we had a greenhouse, but it just got way too cold. So it was far too cold, and the greenhouse was never going to hold any sort of heat whatsoever, nor would it ever warm up enough during the daytime. Again, it would have to, you know, so it wasn't that kind of greenhouse. This greenhouse is different and I'm in a different environment. Again, growing zone 8A. So again, today's gonna be like 50 degrees. I think tomorrow's gonna be like 60 degrees. So I've got the front door open. I've got one of the roof vents open, and again, with, the sun that comes in, it gets very warm in here, which warms up the passive heating, the milk jugs and whatnot. And then, again, it stays much warmer at night, which allows everything to grow and survive and thrive. And I'm really, really surprised with that Arctic frost that so much stuff, especially like the lettuce, which was very, very tender seedlings at the time, and a few of the other things in here, that they actually survived. There was really no frost damage whatsoever, which again, I'm really blown away by. I was pretty sure that the nighttime lows, it was just going to get so freezing cold in here that frost was really going to damage or kill off quite a few things. But that didn't seem to happen, which is really great. If you have any questions, comments, etc., please leave them below. If you'd like to help support the channel, please go over to growingyourgreenfinger.com. And if you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's a link for the shop, the store. I forget what I called it. I think it's the shop. Either way, you can pick up merch like this sweatshirt that I'm wearing. I have some fun mugs with sunflowers on them and a few other items. I'm also in the process, in the works of mixing two themes together. Pirates and the garden. It sounds strange, but I'm working on some new merch there involving pirates and the gardens. Oh, keep an eye out for that. Again, all my social media links are below, and I think that's about it for today. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.